Hey classes, it's Mr. Hayes coming at you on a Friday, September 18th. I'd like to talk today about how to write the all-important CQA paragraph. It's going to be our first CQA paragraph of the year. It is acronym for what's called a literary analysis. It's something I mentioned yesterday as crucial to not just eighth grade, but also moving over to the high school next year. You'll do plenty of CQA style writing. So we're going to take our quote chart from yesterday and make that the basis of our CQA paragraph. This is the first slide that I have for a literary CQA, which breaks down the different parts of that CQA acronym. C stands for claim and context, Q for quote, and A for analysis. You're going to have all three or three and a half, if you count the claim as maybe a half. You're going to have all of these parts in one body paragraph today. You will indent, but this is just a one paragraph CQA for now. The claim and context sets up your quote. You're going to begin with that claim. You're going to tell me exactly what your focus of your paragraph is. What are you writing about? What is the main idea? You're going to follow that up with some context around the scene of your quote. Your context is going to be describing what's going on in the moment of the quote that you chose. The reason being is because if we just jump into the quote without any background, the reader is going to be confused about what's going on. Who are these characters? What is this setting? So in the context, you'd probably it'd be beneficial to describe a little bit about the book. You don't want to go into too much of detail, but just the essentials, and then describe that scene of the quote that you chose. That's why it's so important to pick the quote first, like we did yesterday, so you can describe that scene in the context. After that, you want to pick that best quote from your three options yesterday that you've already described that scene in the context, and you're going to place the quote in your paragraph. Make sure that quote checks all three of the boxes from yesterday's lesson. It has layers of meaning and is insightful. It connects to the claim, and you can make multiple connections with it. And then finally, after the quote is your analysis. And your analysis is going to have a lot of different elements to it. I boiled it down to these 4 questions right here on the right. So after your quote, you're going to tell me, and feel free to use the sentence stems we've worked on, like this shows me, this connects to, this is important because. You're going to try to answer these 4 questions in your analysis. How does this quote prove your claim is true? So explain in your own words why you chose that quote. How is the quote really important to the story? You want to magnify its importance. What does it connect to elsewhere in the book? That's maybe where you have one of the quotes you didn't choose from yesterday's chart. Maybe you make a connection to that. If I'm talking about Junior's isolation, maybe there's another moment in the book that shows he's isolated. And I can use that connection in my analysis. And then finally, why is this important for everyone to understand? That's kind of like, why is this an important theme? How does this connect to humanity, not just one character? Okay, so those are the different parts of the CQA. This will make a lot more sense as we move forward and I show you my actual CQA paragraph and talk you through how this blends into what I wrote. So if you go to the next slide, you're going to see my example CQA paragraph. This should be about the length of yours. Yours might be a little bit longer, but you do not want it to be much shorter than this. This is a big paragraph. You can see here I divided the parts up into color code so you can clearly see what's going on. And I've got my claim in red, my one sentence claim, my main idea, my main point, my yellow context, my blue quote, and my green analysis. I would like to read through this and talk it through with you. So in the novel, The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie, that's how you're going to start it. We see what? What's my main idea? What did I choose yesterday? Well, I chose a person versus society conflict between the protagonist Junior and his setting, the Spokane Indian Reservation. There, I've established exactly what I'm going to talk about throughout the rest of my CQA, which is the person versus society conflict. Who is the person? Junior. What is the setting? The reservation. Now I'm going to give some context. In my context here, I'm going to start by describing broadly more about the book as a whole before I get into specifics about the scene of the quote that I chose. You can see how that works here. So I'm starting broad. The main character, Junior, grew up on the res, surrounded by poverty, violence, and alcoholism. Even though his family is incredibly talented and intelligent, they have all given up on life. This includes his big sister, Mary, who rather than follow her dreams as a romance novel writer, has turned into, in Junior's words, a basement mole rat. So I don't have to do a page number for that because it's such a short little quotation. But right there, I'm establishing the broader problem with the reservation. The poverty, the violence, the alcoholism, and mentioning Junior's sister to set up my main point of how junior conflicts with the same setting in the same society. Now I'm going to get more specific to my scene of the quote. Right here, while junior wants to succeed academically and avoid falling into the same cycle of despair as his parents and sister, that's my little transition phrase there, he is hamstrung by his surroundings, most notably a lack of resources at his school. His brief excitement about starting school, and specifically geometry class, was quickly halted when he discovered he was given the same textbook as his mother at his age. So now I'm zooming into that one scene of my quote, getting more and more specific. Now my reader, he or she may never have read this book before, but now they know what's going on. Quote, so that means I was staring at a geometry book that was at least 30 years older than I was. And let me tell you, that old, decrepit geometry book hit my heart with the force of a nuclear bomb. My hopes and dreams floated up in a mushroom cloud. And then I've got my page number 31. I would like you to have, now I've mentioned Sherman Alexie up here. So if I do that, it's okay if I don't have the last name of the author in my parentheses here. That is okay. But if you neglect to do the name up here of the author, you would want to put the last name, Alexie, 31. So that's the quote that I chose. It was number one out of my three options from yesterday's chart. And I just felt like it was extremely insightful. I had layers of meaning to it. How I love the comparison of the nuclear bomb, the fact that it was a turning point for Junior and his actions, and it was very well written as well. Now I can make multiple connections to other moments where Junior felt annoyed by his surroundings. Now the most important part, the analysis, and you can see here I've done some sentence stems in bold. You can use these if you want. Feel free to use the same sentence stems I did if you'd like. This quote perfectly captures the disappointment that quickly follows anything representing a hope for the future. Now I'm getting into my reader's voice, right? I'm trying to sell this argument to my reader. So now I'm explaining to the reader why I chose that quote, why I think it's so important. Even Junior's excitement for school is tempered when he realizes his ancient textbook is symbolic of the poor resources at his backward school, meaning he has no chance to receive the education that could free him from the reservation. Basically, I'm describing the aha moment, describing the person versus society conflict brewing to the surface and why it's important. Now I'm going to make a connection. This moment connects to a conversation later in the book when Mr. P appears at Junior's house following his suspension for throwing that very textbook in frustration. And Mr. P admits to Junior he was trained to kill the Indian to save the child. Now, if I make a text connection like this, I want to explain the connection. I don't just want to leave that alone. I want to now explain why I made the connection. Not only is Wellpinit High School a place where textbooks are outdated, but the teachers have a philosophy of destroying all semblance of pride in their own culture. This could be the reason Mary has given up on her dreams. This is especially important because an act of bravery is the only way to break a cycle of despair, ultimately driving our protagonist to leave the res for privileged Reardon High School. Now, my last sentence, I rounded out with that big idea theme, right? That universal theme. An act of bravery is the only way to break a cycle of despair is definitely a universal theme that can apply to all humans, not just Junior. And certainly here it applies to this specific character as well. So those are the parts right there, class, of my CQA. Please use this as a resource for you, as an example to not just structure your essay, structure your paragraph, but also you can use these sentence stems as well. So I will leave you now to begin working on your first CQA of the year. I am going to be available for any help that you may need. I will have a Zoom meeting open or I will be by my computer for any email questions. If you need some help, you can definitely drop in. If you'd like it to be private, there's multiple people in there. I can send you to a breakout room with just me too. But here on this page, you're going to see a link to access your My Thinking Logs. This is how you label your first CQA in your table of contents. And then down here, I have both the glue-in, it was a glue-in last year. I'm still trying to get that out of my vocabulary. The slide here that will help you with the parts, and then my example down here as well. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there. Reach out if you have any help today, and good luck on your first CQA paragraph. I'd like this completed by Monday when you come back to school. Thanks, everybody.